Good day, everyone. This is Diane Fodell. Thanks for joining the Cognitive Systems Institute speaker series this morning or this afternoon. I'm happy to introduce Dr. Charles Palmer, who is an IBM Distinguished Research Staff Member who focuses on special projects relating to security and privacy, unique customer challenges, and broad security and privacy issues for IBM. Prior to these roles, he led the security and privacy departments at IBM's Thomas J. Watson Research Center, where he founded IBM's Ethical Hackers team. Most recently, he initiated the efforts to explore how Watson could be used and applied to cybersecurity. Charles is also an adjunct professor of computer science at Dartmouth. He's a member of various advisory committees in Washington, D.C., and today, Charles will share his experiences in teaching cognitive computing at universities using Watson. So welcome, Charles, and I'll turn the call over to you.
Thank you, Diane, and good morning, afternoon, evening to all. To say the least, when I suggested to the team, the faculty team at Dartmouth, where I've been an adjunct for, 8 years, that, gee, maybe we ought to offer a Watson course. They were extremely interested, and at the same time they had no idea what that would be, and pretty much I didn't either. So I collected some ideas and chatted up the Watson team, who had put on a nationwide competition a few months earlier, or I guess a year earlier, where they seeded universities with these ideas. Let's get some people together, make some little teams with maybe a business person or an engineer and a couple of geek programmer types and maybe a user kind of person, and just handpick these teams and quick show them the tools and turn them loose and see what happens. It was a big competition, and I think the winner just got to be, got pat on the head. And in fact, the winner, as I recall, was an application in Texas, the University of Texas, that helped. It was sort of a helpline. They had a helpline you could call. I think it was 211 or something, and you get some help for depression or homelessness or food or whatever. And it was kind of a problem because it was, as most services are, they were used. And they came up with this assistant that was Watson-based and put it on a mobile. And, of course, everybody seems to have a mobile, regardless of their situation. And it was adopted by the state. So this turned out to be just way cool. And there are lots of other very cool applications, ideas that came out of that. So when I heard about that, that's when I called up the Watson guys and said, all right, look, I got a bunch of people here. I got some smart students. Let's do this thing. So we originally were going to try to emulate the combine the business, engineering, user people, and programmers together, and that didn't work out for a lot of reasons, mostly just logistics here at Dartmouth. But we wanted the course to be very entrepreneurial, and I teach several other courses here, and I always make them do those kinds of things. So. Sure enough, we ended the course. I'll get to the rest of the course in a moment. But we ended the course with a project. Teams of 2 or 3 kids do something cool. The same thing they told me when they hired me at research. And so they certainly did. But let's take a step back. It was a very close collaboration with IBM Watson Academic Initiative and the Watson Education team. And as a result, we were able to access the IBM Bluemix collection of tools and services free of charge. And this is called the Academic Initiative, and it is still in place, and I highly recommend it. I'm not even teaching this course this term, and 2 of the students, these were all undergrads, by the way, 2 of these students continued to work on their projects from last term under the Academic Initiative, which allows them to continue to develop for 12 months or so. So they're having a great time, and who knows what's going to come out of this. We limited it to 40 undergraduates, 40 because we had never taught it before, and we knew if we didn't limit it, we would have 240, and there were easily 40 more or 50 more on the wait list. We limited it to undergraduates, though, because while graduate students can be fun uh, and they bring a certain um, level to the class, we wanted these to be more undergraduate folks because the course is very applied. We weren't going to get into machine learning. We at the very beginning decided this is not going to be an ML class. We have ML people. There's way smarter ML people than Charles. Let's make this applied because I'm more of a do it kind of guy. So we opened up the course to undergraduates, computer science, engineering. We had economists, we had biologists, a couple of physicists, and several who hadn't really decided yet. It turned out to be a very robust mixture. On the screen, you can see the class notes. Again, not particularly exciting. One of the main things, though, that we have to start off with, and I didn't put it on that first page, but I said it probably every hour for the first 2 weeks, level set. The students have heard of Watson. They've heard of the amazing successes of TensorFlow and all the other stuff that's out there. And they come in expecting to build Jeopardy in 9.5 weeks. And that's not how long it takes. Even with all the advances since the Jeopardy project, it's still a very detailed and lengthy process to come up with something as amazing as the Jeopardy project. So once we set their expectations, things moved much more smoothly. As far as a text, there really isn't one. I ended up choosing, this text here, Cognitive Computing, A Brief Guide for Game Changers. I chose it not because it focused on IBM or Watson, but because it focused on everything cognitive. And it's a short book and real intense. It's probably got more URLs per page than most books you'll encounter. But as a result, it gave the students an extraordinary quick view of all of the amazing stuff going on. And it was fairly recent at the time. It was only a year old when I finished the course. Okay. So the other items were not particularly interested. The schedule is there, but I'm going to kind of go through all of that. So we'll just keep on moving here. So the prerequisites, we wanted them to be able to program because with Watson on Bluemix, there's lots of cool things you can do with just point and click and connect the dots, and you don't have to be a programmer. That's one of the beauties, appeals of the Watson Analytics, Watson Systems, and Bluemix. However, I know these students, and once they find a tool, they want to go off and build a house. So it was very clear that they needed some very solid programming background. Some students used C, most used Java, and actually some used Java, most used Python. There was one loony who kept trying to use Haskell, and we just kind of said, no, you don't want to do that because there were no language bindings for Haskell. There may be now. He's still working. And we had projects and a couple of quizzes just to try to make it a course. The quizzes were just basic ML concepts. Like I said, it's not an ML class, but it was still understanding what is a corpus, how do you develop content, and how do you use the Watson systems in general. So we started with Bluemix from like the second week. And I have to admit, I'm a 40-year IBMer. I was very nervous about Bluemix because I know these students, and while Bluemix really is one of the coolest things on the planet, it ain't the kind of thing that they're all playing with. It's not Node.js. It's not the mean stack with MongoDB and all that. It's different, and I didn't know how they would react. And at first, they were sort of taken aback and blown away by all the possible options and things you can do. But once I showed them, well, you just pick a topic, read about it just a little bit because they're very good summaries, and then click on the example. And every example out there, every one of the services out there has a working demo, and that did it. These students, and I think most university students, we were mostly at the junior, senior level. you give them a piece of code and a cool idea, and they're off modifying, and they just took off. So the Blue Mix thing worked well. I did have a couple of concerns early on about load and would it be too much, and it never happened. The only problem we ever had was networking, and that was not Blue Mix. It was a backhoe, so that wasn't a problem. I also made sure that throughout the term, since as Diane said, I'm a security geek, and I've been using Watson now for 3 years. I'm not a deep ML guy. I'd love to be, but I'm not. So I am lucky being in Dartmouth, which is in New Hampshire. I'm very near the Littleton lab in Massachusetts, where they keep a lot of the Watson gurus, and a couple others are in Boston. So this worked out just fine. I had 3 different speakers, or 4, I forget, come up and give talks, just to sort of break up the lecture, and mostly to bring a little reality to this really cool thing we were trying to do. The reality talks were around genomics, and another one was around, well, I'm sorry, I didn't have 4, I had 3. The wine lady, there's a company that started that's a very elaborate wine information and they sell, of course, and all kinds of interesting stuff. And they're using Watson, and she was going to come give a talk. And sadly, or for us, but lucky for her company, they landed some big deal in Italy and disappeared. She couldn't come. We had another guy come from oncology. And this is where I had opened up, for the guest speakers, I opened up the course to anyone on campus. And I advertised it a little bit, but it always helps. If you tell them you've got a guest speaker talking about Watson and oncology, you better get the amphitheater. Because with the Dartmouth Medical School right here and the cancer center that they've got, they all emptied into the room. And I was afraid the guy might not ever get to go back to Littleton because the questions were very, very strong. And collaborations may emerge from that. I don't know. They all were swapping cards faster than I could watch. So the oncological assistant was there. Personalized medicine was the subject of the Watson for genomics. And one of the Watson guys in education came to talk about Watson and the API economy, which is really what the kids were all kind of floating towards. Finally, we had a very lengthy discussion, as you should, on ethics. Watson's cool, TensorFlow is cool, all these things, they're great. But what does it mean? And we probably spent, all told, out of the 9.5-week term, yes, we're in the quarter system, we probably spent a week discussing ethical issues and, well, just what does it mean? Is it going to threaten jobs? Is it a conversion from blue and white collar to new collar, as Jenny described it? What's it going to be? How do you make some of these decisions? What's the right thing to do? And I don't know about other students, but the Dartmouth students are not shy, and they have very, very definite opinions. And it was just a wonderful discussion. I had a guest speaker, a colleague of mine, give that talk, and we all just kind of chewed on it. And people are still stopping me and asking. And there was also some interviews and stuff around campus about the class, and it was extraordinarily well received. So, all right, so that's the interesting talks we had. Now a little bit about the projects. I gave them assignments that were primarily to help them get familiarized with the Watson tools. Sorry, I'm not a slide person. If you are, well, I apologize. We kicked them off with BlueMix after a little bit of talk, and then first application was face recognition, and this was kind of basically take the demo, pick sets of faces that you'd like to try to train the system with, and see how it works. And then we talked about what faces worked well, what conditions, how similar did the lighting have to be, the usual image processing stuff. And the students got to pick pretty much whatever they wanted. Um, some chose not to do faces. One biology student did a tree leaf recognition system of a particular collection of trees whose leaves are uh, difficult to discern the difference between. One guy decided he would take the very standardized photographs of U.S. congresspersons, because they're all, in front of the blue curtain with the red flag, red, white, and blue flag, and try to come up with an algorithm to determine if they were Democrat or Republican. Uh, Fascinating, interesting time of the year to do that, right before the election, and he did make some progress, but it was certainly not definitive. Now, the next thing you see on there is October 10th, the video. This is not a course where you can ask them, okay, turn in your papers, I'll grade them. You can't. You don't. It's so creative. It's like an art class where they're building video. They're building something that you have to experience. Well, that's the way we did this. We said, all right, everybody's got a Mac, everybody's got a Windows box. Make a video. Make it entrepreneurial from the beginning. And that's what they did. They made videos. They submitted their videos with, text if necessary, background, whatever, origin, where one group, well, that's a project. I'll talk about that later. Anyway, so they submitted the videos, and it worked swimmingly. It was just great. And the other thing was, now I've got something to use to advertise the course next time. That's the other nice part. Okay, another project was the conversational agent, which is another one of the keystones of Watson, and that is bots, if you will. Conversational agent, it's all about talking to the monkey behind the wheel. And, well, you got to figure out how to do that. And so they had projects there as well. And let's see. Then we got to the projects. Excuse me. The projects were very open-ended. Do something cool. Once again, we had to rein them in. They all wanted to boil the ocean. They all wanted to go off and solve world hunger. And throughout the term, I kept making the point, look, this is hard. You don't have that much time, even to gather up the materials to feed and teach Watson. So perhaps let's back off a little bit. And we still ended up with amazing projects. We're all very aware of the opioid epidemic, particularly in the Northeast. One of the tools was a mobile app that you could send a link to, send a friend a link to it, and ask them to fill it out, and it would help them try to determine if they have an issue and what they might do about it. Several of them were food-oriented, college students, not surprising, collapsing all the menus around campus and then allowing you to say, well, I feel like a curry today, or whatever. Another one was maintaining an inventory of the contents of your refrigerator. And then if you said, I feel like a curry, then it would go off to Chef Watson and come back with a bunch of recipes. And then you would select one, and it would tell you what you needed to buy on the way home. Pretty cool stuff. Another one, there's a well-known neurologist here at Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Facility who sort of wrote the book on some disease that I can't pronounce. And one of the students was a friend of his, and they got with this guy, and essentially, while we could not arrange to ingest his entire text into Watson, they did interview him extensively and decide or come up with a way to help a doctor make a diagnosis of this thing and then what to do about it. So that was very popular. And finally, I guess perhaps one of the more innovative ones was they combined the New Hampshire tendency towards recycling and green with Watson, and they went to the local trash processor and visited and learned about their zero sort technique, which was essentially a dozen people on either side of a long conveyor belt. And their goal is to stand there X hours a day and watch for things that shouldn't be there or that should be in a different conveyor belt, and just pick all day. And they talked to some of the folks. These are very enterprising two young men. And the folks said, well, yeah, if we had something that could tell us where to look, it'd save us a lot of time. We could do this faster. And it was great. They set it up. They got the images going. It wasn't quite fast enough with the hardware they were using, but it showed that it was possible. And we also made the point this does not displace employees. And maybe the head of the company was less satisfied with that part of it, but it didn't replace the employees. It made them more effective, and they were able to do a better job. And they came back at the end and said, look, if this thing actually was deployed, we would make far fewer mistakes. We'd have better quality at the other end, and overall the company would get a better reputation. So for all these projects, they all did a video, as with all the projects, and they presented them. And the students in the classroom would ask questions, how did you do this? Why did you do that? What happened here? That sort of thing. Some of the students went full-blown entrepreneurial. One group did a project for an investor that brought together tons and tons of data, Wall Street type data, did a pile of analytics, presented you with a dashboard, and you could do things like click on this and find out all the different comments. That's another thing. We leveraged Watson Analytics quite a bit, and these guys took articles from the web, current news articles from the web regarding certain whatever company you ask for, had Watson Analytics through Alchemy API go off and look at these documents and characterize them as positive, negative, on the fence, that sort of thing. Is the author angry? That sort of stuff. And it really, I've seen lots of these Wall Street, these investor dashboards, and this really provided a different perspective. Not only did it find interesting stuff in general, and a whole bunch of numbers, of course, but it also came back with the articles and, well, okay, Motley Fool wrote about it, but how do they really feel? What did their text really, what sentiment did they have? What perspective did they seem to have? And the Watson Analytics through Alchemy API can identify that. So all told, it was a rousing success. I've taught many courses here. I've never had a course finish with more people than it started with. We ended up with 42 at the end somehow. And it received the highest ratings of any of the courses we've had. And it's all about the subject. They know, if I know this stuff, I'll get a job. And they're absolutely right. Several of them have moved from security to ML, and others have moved into ML ML, Watson, cognitive, from biological sciences, or are combining them into their own work. So we'll be offering it again 1 year from now, next winter, and I have no idea if we'll ever stop. So I think I've got right on the nose there. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to give it a shot.
Perfect timing, Charles. Thank you. It sounds like a very fun course. Audience, please press star 1 on your phones to unmute to ask Charles questions. And I'll just point out for Charles that Professors Lodek Zadrozny and Professor Steve Kwan are on the line, and they also have taught cognitive computing with Watson. And
cool.
Yeah. Hi, Charles. This is Jim Sporer. Thanks for a great presentation, and I'm totally with you on the no slides thing. Were the talks there in the auditorium at Dartmouth recorded? Are there links to those recordings?
I'm still looking for them.
Okay, when you find them, let me know.
Yeah, I
do have another question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Another question is, because that would be a great resource as well, so thanks for looking into that for us. And my second question is, I don't know if you saw the Thrun letter in Nature Letters about skin cancer, but I'm wondering, based on the great projects that you were describing, if there isn't an opportunity for some of these students to get a publication as well, because it seems like if you look at that through a Nature letter, basically what they did is they took all the skin cancer images on the web and created an app that's on your smartphone that can, detect skin cancer pretty well. So it seems like, given the image recognition projects and some of the other things you said, that might be an inspiration to some of the students to see that Nature letter.
Good. I would love to see that. I didn't see that.
I'll mail it to you. Thanks,
Super.
Charles, for a great talk.
Charles, hi, this is Wojtek Zadrozny. So yes, as Diane mentioned, I did run a couple of times a Watson-based class here at UNC Charlotte. And, your project is very nice. My question is a little bit different. I mean, I sort of have an idea how to, say, use Watson in a cognitive computing or cognitive science class. But given your background, I mean, do you think that there is an opportunity to create a class on that would use Watson for something related to security? We have a large, security center here in Charlotte, so that would be of potential interest to my colleagues.
Sure. Well, 3 years ago, I started a project in that, and it sort of evolved into the current service offering, Watson for Security. There's lots of opportunities. One of the projects that would make sense is, okay, there's all this security information. What does what I proposed originally was, what does a security analyst do when he gets to the job in the morning? Well, he or she has to read a whole bunch of stuff that appeared overnight from their usual dependable sources. And so something that would process all that and basically tell you, no, there's really nothing in dark reading today, but you ought to go look at security intelligence. Okay, they've got something interesting. Or we know you've got a bunch of folks using MongoDB, and oh golly, it's happened again. Go look over here. Just as something to try to filter out the noise would be a cool project. There's all kinds of things you could do with a bot to help people through security issues, configuring their systems and stuff like that, because that's always going to be a challenge. And the analytics, that might be the biggest opportunity. We have all this data, we have all this security stuff, and we don't know what we know, or we don't know what we could know, I guess is the word. And so I've been encouraging students to take a deep dive into analytics lately, so that might be a good angle.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Wojtek. And for those of you who don't know, Wojtek was an IBM researcher on the original Watson Jeopardy team. He's now a professor at UNC Charlotte, but he's taught Watson around many universities. Any other questions?
Lucky guy.
Well, we're about out of time, but Charles, thanks for the presentation. Thanks for teaching Watson. I'm going to ask the audience to continue the conversation if you have more questions on our LinkedIn discussion group. Thanks, audience, for joining, and we will see you next week. Thanks again, Charles.
Good day. Thank you, everyone.